and welcome to a fresh episode of Kashmir Impulse Showcase. The person we have today with us is a doctor, but that's not why we are talking to her. She's also an author of the book Leaves from Kashmir. This is one book that has recently created waves. This is a narrative from Kashmir, a different take. It's a fiction book written in a prose cum poetry style. Let me introduce you to Saba Shafi Makhdoumi. Hello Saba and welcome to the show. Saba, tell us a little about how you thought of writing a book, being a doctor. How did you want to become an author?
Basically, writing was something that I was quite inclined towards while I was in school and also in college. But being a doctor, I never really gave it serious thought. But it was in 2016, while I was working at a cancer hospital in Delhi, that I, started scribbling, and it was very vague and very incoherent initially. But slowly I started giving it some shape and some form, and this book was born thus.
So, what is the book basically about?
So the book is actually written in it's a work of fiction, novella actually, and it's based on a style of writing which is called stream of consciousness. So there is a central character, protagonist, which has not been given a name. She's referred to as her in the book, yes, and it's about her journey from a small town in Kashmir, to a metropolitan city like Delhi, and it's her ruminations on life, on longing for her home, her struggle in trying to make some sense, or in an existential crisis, and it also touches, though not directly and not at length, but it does touch on the political unsettling atmosphere in Kashmir, especially in 2016.
So, what do you think did the idea germinate from? Does it relate to you as a person, or is it a totally fiction story?
So this is probably one question that is very difficult for an author to answer. I mean, if you were to ask me, does this book reflect me as a person? Is it my journey? I'd say yes and no, both.
Okay.
Yes, there are stories which do, or incidents which do have some bearing maybe of my story, or some story that I might have heard from friends or from colleagues and so on and so forth. But is it entirely a memoir? It isn't. But how do you really say that the author is attaching as well as detaching from his work of So it's both a yes and a no.
So there are some
yes.
points from your own life,
from my experience,
that can be reflected in the
yes.
book.
Yeah.
Okay, so the character, I found her distressed. She's trying to escape from a lot of from the tempest that's built up inside her.
Right.
So learning about you, you've had your own problems that you've went through, and there is one rising problem in Kashmir, that's depression, and you find it very common in Kashmir, and you've yourself tackled depression. We'd like you to talk a bit about depression, and then people how to fight, and those people who are distressed, how to come out of it.
I did my schooling and my college years from Kashmir, and as anyone who's been a part of the society would know, it's not really the conditions on the exterior are not always very conducive.
Sure.
So even in college I did struggle with mental health. But it wasn't really, I didn't really have clinical depression around the time, but 14, 2016, thereabouts was quite a difficult time for me personally.
Okay.
I went into depression, and as is the want, nobody really, people around me really didn't know what to do with it. I mean, and this is despite the fact that I come from a family of doctors, I'm a doctor myself, but you know, this was really unknown territory for them. But thankfully, I actually, someone that I know got me in touch with an NGO here, run by an English lady, Justine Hardy, who, you know, who employs Kashmiri boys and girls as psychologists, as psychiatrists, therapists, that are really doing phenomenal work here.
Okay.
They have various outreach programs that, you know, help people with various mental issues, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very, very common in Kashmir. Children with attention deficit hyperkinetic disorder, children with depression as well. So it's with my association with these people that they really helped me, you know, cope up with it, and also gave me the, you know, the confidence to sort of talk about it, and made me aware of the staggering amount of stigmatization that you have associated with.
That is important.
Yes.
That is associated with depression often in Kashmir.
Yes.
Although it's very common, but you see that stigma. So can you tell us how to tackle that stigma a bit, and how to not take it as something which is a taboo?
Yes, you know, the thing is that, well, it's quite ironical that, you know, in a place which is so ridden with strife and conflict, people really don't, you know, sit back and understand or reflect upon the immense impact it's making on our collective psyche and also on our individual psyche, you know. I mean, you live in incredible conditions which are not normal. I mean, the young kids do not have a normal childhood. Most of them don't really, you know, get the normal vent of their emotions or their pent-up feelings. And yet, you know, I mean, you don't really see schools which encourage kids to come out with their problems. You don't have, I mean, I remember growing up here and studying in a school which didn't have a, you know, counselor.
Sure.
So, you know, I think the more we talk about it, the more people who've suffered this come out of their woodworks.
They need to come out.
Yes, yeah, they need to. I mean, this mental health is just as important, or probably even more important, as your physical health. And yet we don't really
somehow
emphasize.
It needs to be treated as a common, like
Yes.
any other disorder. It
Yes.
needs to be treated normally,
Yes.
rather
Yes.
than being all shush about it.
Yes, yes. You know, you need to, I mean, you're not going to, you will feel empathetic towards somebody who's got hypertension, who's got diabetes or the like. But mental disorder is looked frowned upon. It's looked very suspiciously, cynically. And I think that needs to, you know, that can go only once there is awareness and education, you know.
So Saba, how would you trace your journey from being a doctor and then an author? And also there's a second book from you, which is, I think, Dancing with the Daisies. Tell us a little about that as well.
So most of the writings that I did were around 2016. And, you know, I used to write. I was working as a pathologist in a cancer hospital in Delhi. And I would write, I mean, that was my day job, and I would write in the nights. So the thing is, a lot of doctors take to writing because they are faced with the enormity of dealing with the human condition and not just dealing with diseases or disorders. And, you know, you, while you're trying to be the healthcare provider for everyone else, it does take a toll on you emotionally as well as on you mentally, not to speak of the physical constraints, and yeah, it does inflict upon you. So I think more to document all that and to sort of not sleepwalk through life, I started writing. And for me, it was quite a natural inclination.
Talk a bit about Dancing with Daisies. That's your second book.
So Dancing with Daisies is basically an anthology, a collection of some 25 poems that have been written on various topics, on longing for your homeland, on love, on memories, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so my next question to you is, which Saba do you like most, the author or the doctor?
Oh, that's a difficult one to answer. I think both are an equally inherent part of my personality. Okay. And while I do face this question of it being sort of contrarian, you have the artist and you have the scientist. But I think what I tell myself is that there is no better work of art than the human body and the human mind. True. So in that sense, I think every doctor is an artist in the making. So I guess I would say both.
Both. Okay. So currently now that you've shifted to US, so what is in future for Saba?
I don't know. I think uncertainty, but also the ability to embrace that uncertainty. For the record, I would be obviously working as a doctor in the US as well, but writing is something that you really can't take out of me. So whatever little time I might find, I definitely continue with my writing, hopefully in a more methodical way this time.
Is there a new book on cards?
Actually, I am thinking of writing a novel which would be based in Kashmir. I mean, now that I'm in the US, I understand people know very little of our culture and our society, our people, and it would be quite nice to sort of introduce them to this part of the world, and hopefully in more real, humane way, the human values
values that Kashmiris have. Well, that's great, and it's been actually very nice talking to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's been wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's all for today's episode. We came to know about Saba, who's putting our stories on the world map. I hope there are many new writers who get an inspiration and start writing Kashmiri stories. Thank you so much for being with us.